Preparing to setting up and welcome everybody. My name is Gidon Ariel, and I am here today with my good friend Pastor Alan Latta of Granbury, Texas. Am I right? Granbury, right?
Yes, sir. Shalom, my friend. Hood County, Texas. I'm pastor in the hood. Man, it's been a
Amen.
long time, too long. How are you keeping?
This is the thing. People, I usually like to really talk to people once a week. And then after a while, they said, "Oh, we miss it too often. Instead, let's do it once a month." And so then we miss it once a month. The only thing is that our conversation is in order to have these conversations online. So we really only do them once a month. But we're happy. Here we are, and we're happy to be here. I
Yeah,
am at least. I'll speak for myself.
me too. Me too.
How's it going? How's it going out there in Granbury, Hood County?
It's going good. The rains have come. It's humid now, and the flowers are blooming. The best time in Texas is the wildflower season. So, yeah, it's happening.
Tell that to your friends with hay fever.
I am. Yes. Yeah. I don't stay on this stuff, but when I need it, I'll take a Zyrtec or a Flonase. Yeah.
Okay. I also noticed a little bit of hay fever. We use Zillergy I have here. I have to get another one. I hope I'll remember.
Um,
All
yes.
right. So what's on your mind, my good friend?
Well, I was wanting to talk about lamenting. I'm fascinated with the subject. In the scriptures, there's like a third of the Psalms, the psalmist is lamenting, and then epiphany of some sort comes, and he comes to a place of trusting God no matter what. But yesterday, I made a discovery that the word Palestinian is used where I'm not sure it's supposed to be in the making of covenants with the Israelites in the wilderness. The big event that happened in Deuteronomy 30 or 28 through 30, 31, dealing with the land. If that is a covenant with a name, I would call it the land covenant, but it's being called Palestinian covenant. And so I heard it the first
What are
time
you talking
yesterday.
about? I never heard of such a thing.
I heard it the first time yesterday. So I went online searching for the term, and it's a regular term used by pro Israel Christian groups to differentiate that agreement made with God between the other agreements to call it the Palestinian government covenant. Why are they doing that? Because it wasn't called Palestine then. So anyway, I prefer land covenant. I don't know if you view it as a separate covenant or not, but if we could dig into that a little bit. If not, we can come back to it another time.
No, here we are. My Bible is already open. You're talking about the covenant that is spoken about in wait, tell me again what chapters?
Deuteronomy 30, you have the warnings and promises in chapter 28, and then it segues into the agreement uh, the people in the wilderness made as they come into the land. And so I think there's the boundaries laid out. I'm not sure. I could,
Again, did you say 30 through something?
28 through 30. So it's like they're being promised the land of Palestine. Wait a minute. It
Oh,
wasn't given that name. It's a renewing of the covenant.
just one second. I can't just let this go. Let me share the screen here and go a little bit to the Palestinian covenant. I'm going to get the Declaration of Independence of Palestine. Palestinian covenant in the Bible, Deuteronomy.
So see, it's made in the land of Moab. Why don't they call it the Moabite covenant? Well, that would definitely be a no-no. Why? Who started this? Yeah, I got questions. That's the first place I went to verify.
Who
I
is?
guess the word land is a bit boring and they want to be more distinguishing. I don't know, but
Well, I'm familiar with some of these. These are old Christian sites, of course.
yeah,
It's
yeah. And let me,
surrendered and free doesn't look very Christian. It looks pretty Palestinian, or maybe not. I don't know.
the sites I looked at were pro modern day Israel. You do know there's distinctions being made between Israel and modern day Israel. Well, here's another distinguishing I didn't know about. So I think
I don't
Israel
know.
365 needs to address this.
Are you in contact with somebody over there?
Um, his name's
No.
Pesach,
It's
Pesach,
Kowalski.
and the brother who was a rabbi in New Jersey. So
New Jersey is a big rabbi state.
yeah,
I think you might be talking about Ellie Michelle, Rabbi Ellie
yes,
Michelle.
Yes, Ellie,
Have you met? You probably met them. They came to
yes,
Granbury, probably.
yes, yes,
Look, what can I tell you? I'll ask you to ask them. Let them try to
yes.
look it up as opposed to me, because I got a lot
Bring
on
it
my
back
plate.
I'll bring back a report next time. No,
Never heard. That's really something. That's
yeah,
really something. I mean, I can only say thanks. That I mean, you got a whole lot of websites that somebody thought of it, and they said, okay, we'll write a page about it. I would hope that those pages are not the most trafficked pages on those websites. But that's really bad that they use that terminology.
yeah. And
I
AI is
mean, and frankly, the idea of those chapters in Deuteronomy being called a covenant is not really what we usually
you call
call
it
them.
a renewal or renewing or
What's
re
renewal? I mean, again, look, the Orthodox Jewish people that I consider myself one of, we are very much involved and related to the Bible, or specifically to the Torah, the Pentateuch. Yes,
yes,
we read one portion every week, every year. So, in other words, you divide the Pentateuch, which is 5 books. Each book you divide into approximately 10 portions. And so that comes out to about 52. So every week you read one and you finish the whole year, right?
yes,
So, and we read it in the original Hebrew, in the cantillation. I think we might have discussed this, which is a tune, a sort of a tune that is given to the Torah reading, and many portions. Listen, I'm about 60 years old, let's say. So I've heard these portions for decades and decades and decades and decades, or decades and decades and maybe decades. And so some of these I know off by heart.
yes,
But our relationship to these texts are, I guess, different from the relationship that I will call them Christian scholars, maybe Christian academics, have to some of these portions. So when they give a name to a passage, call it the Palestinian Covenant, we never, ever, ever heard. Listen, you see how aghast I am.
yeah,
Never heard of that concept at all, and frankly, never really considered that so much of a covenant. Now, I don't have to tell you that, and this is something that I focus on a little bit more, only because of my Christian friends, that most covenants, if not all of them, have an element of blood. There
yes,
is the famous, if you would ask A Jew today, what is and you use the Hebrew word for covenant, which is brit. What is the most famous brit? The most famous brit is Brit Milah, which is the circumcision covenant.
Yes.
There, obviously, it has to do with blood. And then when you come to the maybe
Marriage.
questionably, arguably more important covenant, which is the covenant of Sinai, people don't notice as much, but there's blood over there also. Moses took blood and sprinkled it on the people, right?
Right.
Now, if I were to take out my handy concordance and look for blood in the Pentateuch, it would take me a while. And there might be another blood affiliated uh, covenant in the Pentateuch. You might even be thinking of it now and say, Gidon, don't you remember? But, um, but I don't think that this passage has blood anywhere. Am I wrong? I mean,
I, it's a
it's
big,
talking about some pretty violent stuff, but I don't think that that's what I mean when there should be blood in the covenant. I don't think so. It says very clearly the word covenant I'm just it caught my eye in chapter 29, verse 10. I'm sorry, verse 11. Yes. And I'll read from the beginning of the passage because that is the beginning of the weekly portion of Nitzavim. You are standing. You all are standing today, all of you, before God, your Lord your God, your leaders, your tribes, your elders, and your policemen or something like that, your judges perhaps, every single man of Israel, and in addition, verse 10, verse 2 of the second verse of the passage, your children, your women, the gerim, the strangers, the foreigners that are within your camps, from the wood hewers until the water drawers. Basically saying everybody, even the lowest of the society. All of you are here in order that you will pass in the covenant of the Lord your God and also his curse that we've just read. We didn't read it, it's a very long
right.
portion, about 70 verses or something like that. I can read that all now. Um, that God is now making with you. I'm using the word making in English. He's making how? What is your English translation over there? That God cuts with you.
Enter into covenant with the Lord your God and into his oath, which the Lord your God makes with you today, that he may
Slow
establish
down,
you.
slow down, slow down. That's the end of the verse. That's the end of the verse. Yes. So I use the word make, and you use and your translation uses the word make because the English phrase is to make a covenant. Yes.
Yes.
But the Hebrew phrase is to cut a covenant. And that goes back perhaps to before Abraham, but certainly I'm remembering the covenant of the pieces with Abraham, where Abraham
Yeah.
slaughtered and cut animals and stuff like that, and probably from before that. Also, interestingly, you said to pass through the covenant of the Lord your God and his what do you call it? The beginning of that verse. Once again, verse 11.
I make this covenant and this oath not with you alone.
This oath, and this oath.
Oath, okay.
So I might be wrong, but the word here, alato, I think it's his curse. But I'm not
Well,
gonna. You know what? It's
he
been a
just
while. Let's
he just listed promises and curses.
exactly. So I think that that's what it is. But let me share the screen again. One second. Whoops. We're going to open up two of my favorite sites. That would be Safaria, and the other site is Bible Hub. Come on, Mr. Bible Hub. This is not Genesis 2. We'll already get it quickly. What is it? The Deuteronomy um,
29,
29, right?
14.
And this is Safaria. Let's open that also in English. 1 second. Yeah, that's me. Um, Tanakh, and that is no thanks. Deuteronomy 29, we said.
Yes.
11. To enter into the covenant, the eternal God, which the eternal your God is concluding with you, not making with you, but concluding with you on
Wow.
this day, with its sanctions. This is the revised JPS.
Okay.
Okay. The covenant. So it split up the. This translation is not. I'm raising my eyebrow a little bit because he's not translating it in the order. The word with its sanctions, it's stuck at the end of the verse. You see this little B, I'm sure that it mentions that. To enter into the covenant and the sanctions of the eternal your God. And again, concluding, he prefers concluding over make, but it's really cutting. And let's see what the B here has to say. The curses! I was right. So
Wow.
now let's see what Bible Hub has to say. Oh, come on, let's get it here. Bible Hub
He calls it the
29.
covenant in Moab, not in Palestine.
Imagine that. Thank you, Mr. Bible Hub. You saved the day. So this is 21, and we said 11, right?
Yes.
So let's go to that page here. 11.
Actually, it's I think 13 and 14 maybe, but
It is. It seems to be 12. The verses,
okay.
the numbering is a little bit different. Something that happens sometimes. It mostly happens in the book of Psalms, but it happens elsewhere as well. You are standing here. No, you're right. 13 or 14. Let's go. Second, what is going on?
I'm making the New Living bears it out. I'm making this covenant with its curses.
Okay, so this is verse 14. Oh, I'm sorry, verse 13. No, not with you only am I making this covenant and this with its oath. So that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking. First of all, you see here, this one it has the word Allah appears twice. So here it's mostly oath, but here the New Living Translation did a good job and called it curses. But let's go back to 1 second, 9, 10, 11. That's where I started. What was going on here? All of you are standing, all the men of Israel. Together your children and wives and the ones who carry your water. Next one. You were standing here. Okay, so that confused me. The New International Version as well as the New Living Version came out of the split infinitive and reminded us that you are standing here, but that does not appear in the original text. The Berean is a little bit better, or the Berean literal, that you may enter into the covenant of Lord your God and to his oath, not especially literal. It's the curse. So we got the word curse here anyway. Anybody like that word curse?
Yeah, Gentiles don't like it.
The New Living likes it.
Yes.
The New American, the new people say, listen, in Hebrew it's a curse. We're going to use the word curse. But most
Well,
most do not.
he just laid down some serious curses in chapter 28. So
Don't It's not comfortable, but what can you do? The Bible isn't always very comfortable. Word, a word here used for the first time in Deuteronomy is rendered curse in 29:19-21. It seems to mean an imprecation. I don't even know what that means, which may bring a curse if it's not fulfilled. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Elikata, or Pastor Elikata, wherever you are. Twice we use that. That's it. All the rest of these, call it an oath. I think we have to, we're going to go down here into, what's the word? No, the the number of the body. Here we are. What is this called? The number
Strong,
Strongs.
Strongs, yeah.
An imprecation. Any idea what the heck an imprecation is? Have you ever heard that word?
I've heard of imprecatory prayers where you're praying for your enemies to not be blessed. It could be a curse.
It's very interesting.
You don't want to be imprecated or implicated, right?
Okay, so Genesis 26 uses the word Allah, and it seems more like a covenant.
So it's pronounced Allah and it means curse.
Yes, yes, yes. Isn't that interesting?
That's interesting. You know, in the Greek language, Allah is the Greek word for the conjunction but, to be contrary to. Very interesting. Okay, keep going.
Interesting, but yeah, but that's I think that's that is a coincidence because the word Allah in Arabic is actually similar to the Hebrew word Eloha, which is
Oh,
like Elohim, which means God. So we're not gonna get too
not
far
gonna
with it. Anyway, there you
stretch.
go. And does it appear elsewhere? It look at those curses, curses, curses. So it's oath and curses, if you will. But again, it's different translations.
Well, when you make an oath, you're putting your life on the line, correct?
Yeah, you should.
You break it, you're not going to be blessed. So,
Exactly, exactly. So there is a relationship over there, but you see that is what's so special about the original Hebrew. When you translate the original Hebrew, one second. Yes, when you translate a word, then you decide the people are listening to the translation and say it's a one-to-one translation. If I translate one as a cloud, so it means a cloud. It's mathematical. Yes, pretty much. Even that is not completely true, but I'm not going to get into it too much. But when you have a word that you barely understand what it means in Hebrew, and so a lot of different scholars and rabbis over the centuries give different commentaries and different explanations about what that word means. And then one of the 30 translations of Bible Hub comes along and says, what am I supposed to do? I'm going to put an asterisk by every third word in my translation?
yeah.
No, I'm going to make it easy for my readers, and I'm going to decide this is what it means. At least in this verse, in this context. But they thought that they are doing a service for you, doing a terrible disservice because they're taking out the richness of that word. That God decided to use that word in this space. And when you hear that word, you're supposed to listen to the different meanings of it. You of course, you know the entire Bible off by heart, and you know all of the 36 time occurrences of the word Allah in this case. And you say, okay, it's related to this, it's related to this. Other meanings, I don't know. Maybe there's some some tradition that says it is even related to God Himself. As I said before, in Hebrew, it's the same. It's really the same letters. But when you tuck in a specific translation, that's it. I've closed the box instead of keeping the box open. I closed it. That reminds me, a friend of mine decided to study the daily page of the Talmud. First of all, you've heard of the Talmud, of course.
Yes.
I will repeat. The Talmud is an encyclopedic work of about 5,000 pages. It's 2,700 two-sided pages, so it's 5,000 pages. And there are a lot of reasons why the text is a very difficult text. Number one, it's an Aramaic. It's not the lingua franca of Israelis. So you have to learn Aramaic if you want to study it. Number two, it doesn't have the standard edition does not have vowels. Hebrew doesn't have vowels, but Aramaic doesn't either, so it's hard to understand. Number three, it doesn't have what's it called? Periods and commas. What's the word? I forget.
Jots,
Um,
jots and tittles, punctuation.
Punctuation, of course. Yes, and various other reasons and of course the text itself is very difficult. Then comes along a publisher and says, you know what? We're going to translate this text into English. A tremendous service for those people for whom the Talmud is a closed book, pardon the expression.
Yes.
Except what does it do? It takes away the effort, that part of the effort. I see a word, I'm not even sure. You can barely know where the word one word ends and the next word begins. And I studied the Talmud with that edition for intensively for 8 years, 9 years. So I got people who say I'm not going to bother learning it like that. I'm going to go straight to the English. Then okay, well, look, you've learned the Talmud, but you that's sort of like running a marathon in a car. You're not exercising your legs, What's the whole point?
And you might get off the map. So there you go.
Anyway, so translations are like that as well. That's why this has been my uh, from time to time a advertisement for learning Hebrew so you can study the Bible in the original.
Yeah.
And if
So
you don't learn the Bible in the original because you don't know Hebrew, and what can you do? You're not going to learn not too many people know Hebrew, believe me. We really have to be grateful to God and to the state of Israel, because had it not been for the state of Israel, millions and millions of people would not have Hebrew as their first language, and millions more would not be interested in learning Hebrew as much.
yes, that's a good.
So that's a great important part of the state of Israel.
Yeah.
But I would encourage anybody who's trying to learn the Bible to get a chavruta, to get a study partner with an Israeli who has perfect Hebrew. People like to say that modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew are very different, like modern Greek and Koine Greek or something like that. But as somebody who knows both the Bible and modern Hebrew, it's 95% the same. Once you get a few different things that are slightly different, like the most famous is that biblical Hebrew has an interesting phenomenon called a vav hahipuch. The letter vav, yes, the sixth letter of the Bible. Sorry, the sixth letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which of course is identical for modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew. It's the letter Vav, which is like a V or a
Right.
W. Mostly, it is appended to a word because it's only a letter. So instead of having an entire word and that stands alone, we append the letter Vav to the beginning of a word, and that means and. Like, ani ve'ata, I and you. Me and you. That's ani ve'ata. However, in the Bible, often a verb, not often, almost every single, virtually every verb, virtually every verse starts with Vayomer in the Bible, in the Pentateuch. And God said to Moses, right? You're familiar with that? God said to Moses, saying, right? Familiar with that verse?
Which one now?
God said to Moses, saying, right?
Okay. Yes.
That verse appears probably a few hundred times in the Bible.
Yes.
Let's look it up now for a minute.
Go to the burning bush.
Specifically to that one. We're going to find one. 1 second. Here, Exodus 7:26. So let's go to, let's keep this open. We might want it. Let's duplicate. 1 second. Exodus, obviously it's Exodus, what did I say? 7:26? 7:26. That might be the first time it appears. Exodus 7. Let's try 7:1 and see what happens. That sounds like, here.
Then 6:1, the Lord said to Moses.
Well,
7:1
let's set to Moses.
said to
But
Moses.
let's try 6. Let's try 6, since that for sure has the entire verse. No, not 6, 26. All right.
You have 6:1 and 6:2. The Lord said to Moses, and then 2,
Oh,
God.
maybe there's no 26. What's going on here? I bet, I bet that we got a problem here with Bible Hub because there is no. It's numbered differently in Hebrew.
Yeah.
There it is again. Then the Lord said to Moses, it's all then, and God said to Moses, and the Lord spoke to Moses, right?
Yes. And
In
then
Hebrew,
the next
sorry,
verse, next verse 2 says, and God spoke to Moses.
this is verse 1. Let's try verse 2. No, that's something else. Let's stick with this one. Let's go to do this one, Safaria duplicate. Um, we're going to go to, sorry, Exodus, what did we say, 8:1? Here's Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. And God spoke to Moses, say to Aaron, whatever. There are many times that the verse, and God spoke to Moses saying, but it doesn't matter. The most important part here is this word, Vayomer. Yeah?
Okay.
You might not know Hebrew, but that says Vayomer. That word appears hundreds of times. Let me, I'm not going to even bother to look, maybe thousands of times in the Bible. It starts with a Vav. So that is why, in many translations, and this ties to the revised JPS, and God said, and God said. But it doesn't say, and God said. It says, and God will say to
Huh.
Moses.
Huh.
Here's again. "Vayasochem," and they did thus. The Egyptians did the same, did it. But in Hebrew, it's Ya'asu means will do. And they will do. What's going on over here? Every single time. Here's again the Vav. Vayikra Paro. And Paro summoned, called. In the original Hebrew, it is, and Paro will call to Moses. You see what's going on over here? The verb is switching from future tense to past tense
Okay.
because of that Vav. So you really shouldn't have the and at the beginning of the verse, but we're so used to the letter vav meaning and it sounds biblically. And God said to Moses, and Moses went down to the whatever. But this is the first time you're hearing of all this, aren't you?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? You with me? Hear me, Alan?
You're cutting out. What was that question?
I'm asking you, have you ever heard of this concept of this vav switching the tense of a verb
No,
from past to future?
no, sir, I have not. Never heard that.
Because they can't put an asterisk when you have a translation. You're not going to put an asterisk by virtually every verb in the Bible.
Footnotes everywhere. Yes.
But when an Israeli today, 6-year-old, comes to learn the Bible, he's going to say, Abba, what's going on over here? So he's going to learn this very basic concept in biblical language when he's 6 years old. I've got a 6-year-old grandson who's been studying. I believe he's in second grade, so he's been studying the Bible for many, many months. I will go over to him and I'll ask him, "What is this verb?" What he knows how to read. It's like Vayikra Paro Moshe Aaron and Vayomer. Wait a second. Does this mean the Paro Yikra the Moshe or Paro Kara? Does it mean God will call to Moses, or does it mean that God called to Moses? I'll say, well, obviously it means he called to Moses. It's not the future; it's the past. I said, but the word here it says Yikra. You know that? So it's because of the vav. He probably knows it as a 6-year-old.
Okay.
So there you go. Another example of why it's so important to know. Again, you're gonna say whatever. Who cares? What do you mean? Who cares? This is the Bible. Everything's important.
Right.
And I think that to me that means that God is beyond time.
Oh,
God, is there a difference?
that's
Is there a
good.
difference for God? Is there a difference for God between yesterday, today, and tomorrow? God
Yes.
is above. God is beyond time.
It was and is
So
and
this
is to
is
come.
a repeated again and again and again reminder. You barely are noticing it, but it is a reminder in virtually every verse in the Bible that God is not a man. God is beyond time. For him, past, present, and future, it's all, he's overlooking it all. He's the
Yeah.
omni something, omni time.
Be present.
Well, omnipresent, yeah, I guess that's what it is.
Outside of time.
He's outside of time. So my 6-year-old grandson, I'm not sure, but he might have already come across this deep concept of God's nature when other kids they barely know how to read. Amazing.
Good. Well, back to our original where we started, 29.
Yeah, we went way off.
Yeah. So it talked about covenant and oath. So I see where they could call this a covenant, but to label it Palestinian, if
Forget
you're
it.
going to label it Moabite, well, that doesn't set well with me. It's a land covenant. So I can see where it's called a covenant. And they have been circumcised. So, but you're right. Blood connects to covenant. I mean, even the marriage covenant, if the girl is a virgin, there's blood involved. So,
Never thought of that. Very good. Now, what it does say again, I'm reading in verse again. This is a verse that jumped out of my eye. It didn't jump out of my eye. It jumped out and my eye caught it.
There you go.
Chapter 30, verse 6.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
would you read your translation of chapter 30, verse 6, of course, Deuteronomy?
Yes. This is the New King James Version. And the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live.
Very good. Okay. So yeah, so that word circumcise, again, I believe I saw somewhere that some Christian, um, the whole idea of taking a verse literally, taking a word literally in the Bible, as opposed to how does some Christians like to call the Bible, especially when it deals with Israel, not figuratively,
Metaphorically,
metaphorically. There's another word I was thinking of. So you're not going. Nobody. There is no commandment to open up your, your
yes,
chest and take a knife and cut.
yes,
So,
no,
but what's neat is that we are doing something very serious to your heart.
yes,
That's what it means over it. When you circumcise your son, when he's 8 days old, then it's serious. So we want you to feel as serious about that, about your relationship with God, this entire nation's relationship with God.
right.
But obviously, it's not. Nobody's expecting to cut open your chest for something like this. But there's an echo of that blood covenant. I think maybe again. You caught me off guard over here, so I didn't get a chance. I'm not gonna. We're
Uh,
already running a little late here
I
to
promise.
go through the entire this entire covenant, PA covenant, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Well,
but ultimately, the entire Bible, I think,
yes,
is what somebody decided to call the Palestinian covenant. The entire Bible is God's relationship with the Jewish people and the land of Israel. The
yes,
entire the entire arc of the story of the Jewish people in the Bible is how they entered the land, that they were promised the land by God to Abraham in about the first 15th of the book of the whole Bible. Where did first of all, the promise to the land of Israel was promised to Abraham by God at least two or three or four times, and then to his son Isaac, and then to his son Jacob. In other words, before the Jewish people came on the scene in
yes,
Moses' time, depending on how you count it, it was promised numerous times, and then they actually went in. It took the end of the Pentateuch. We were supposed to go in at the end of Exodus, but we did a big no-no with the sin of the spies, and that kept us out of the land of Israel for 40 years beyond what we were supposed to take. But that's what the whole story is about, that we should have been in. And then you have the book of Joshua, which is the actual conquering of the land, the acquisition of the land. And then you have the rest of the book of Judges and Kings, and other historical books that tell that whole story about how the Jewish people, or the Israelite people, were supposed to follow God's commandments, and if they would have followed God's commandments, then they would have had a great time in the land. But if they don't do it well, as we just mentioned now, then they go out of the land. And that's the end of the Bible. Not the exact end of the Bible, because there's a very optimistic postscript, and that is Cyrus, after 70 years, 80 years, whatever. Not whatever, but at some point that I'm forgetting, right? I think 70 years. God says, okay, through his agent, Cyrus, now it's time for the Jewish people to come back to the land of Israel. And so then Ezra, Nehemiah, Nebuchadnezzar, all those people, Daniel, they all come back. We're done with this book, the book of the Bible. Let's see what happens next. Unfortunately for the Christians, you have the intertestamental period,
Yes.
and then you have the the covenant, the New Testament, which is not the story of the land, the people of Israel and the land. It's a story of Jesus,
Yeah.
which is which you tell me how that's a continuation of the First Testament, and you have to do a lot of explaining. But that's another reason I think that the Jew, in spite of ourselves, the Jewish people don't submit themselves to the second covenant,
Right.
because that's not the story. Our story is the Jewish people in the land of Israel, the Israel people in the land of Israel.
Yeah.
And that intertestamental time, for us, it's not called an intertestamental. What is it called? It's called the Second Temple period. And again, the concept of the Second Temple and the First Temple is focusing on the temple, but what it really means is the Jewish people are in their land. The temple is a symbol of the entire land being under our no, come on, Gidon, come up with the right word for it. We have our land. Our land belongs to us. Sovereignty,
Sovereignty. Okay.
sovereignty. Well done, not well. The Bible is the book of Jewish sovereignty on the land of Israel. And that intertestamental time is the story of the Jewish people's sovereignty in the land of Israel. Again, we fought wars, the Greeks, the Romans, but while the temple was there, we had sovereignty in the land. At least that's our story, and we're sticking to it.
That's the narrative, right?
Yeah, but once the second temple was destroyed and the Jews were exiled, we had 2,000 years of exile,
Yes.
and which is why the third sovereign time today is
Yes.
so amazing for people who read the Bible in the way that I just described. That
Yeah.
we are really going through a third biblical era. We talk about biblical level miracles. We talk about saying when they write the story, you're going to be in that third book of the Bible or whatever. It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yes. Very interesting.
Oh, my good friend, I've really overstayed my welcome. I hope that maybe let's not wait. I think you had two questions, and I only talked about one of them, and
Yeah.
that one apparently.
Yeah.
So,
The
but
other one,
it's very late. I think I might even be missing a meeting. So, please try to find another time before. I think what happened is that I got four people to have a conversation. So once a month.
okay.
But I think the two of those people like sort of like disappeared on me. So you can find another time, and we'll have another conversation before next month if that's good enough for you.
All right. It's good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you, because I don't get too much time. You never get a chance to talk about things like this. It's just there from when you were a kid.
Thank you so much.
Shalom, shalom.